right, we are live. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And we're really excited today for our speaker, and I will get to her in just a second. But right now, I want to take a chance to introduce all our classes joining us live from across North America. So first, we got Miss Smith's grade 3-4s in Peterborough in Ontario. Hi, guys. Hey, welcome in. Awesome. And we got more classes joining us too. Okay. We've got Miss Gary's grade 2s in Woodbury in Minnesota. Hi, guys. Hey! Wow, we got people really excited about shark today. We've got Miss Escamila's kindergarten class in San Antonio in Texas. Always nice to have a San Antonio class. Hi, guys. Hey, nice to see ya. We've got Miss Richard Dome's class, grade 2s in Stafford Springs in Connecticut. Hi, guys. Hi. We've got Miss Sinclair and Miss Smith's grade 2s in Kalispell in Montana. Hi, guys. All right, and we've got a bunch of other classes joining us all at once now. I don't know what the mic situation is. They're all coming in a little late, so I'll introduce them when we get to questions. But right now, we've got 8 classes from all over the place, which is fantastic. Now, of course, the reason you guys are all here today is for our speaker. So we are joined live at the Vancouver Aquarium, part of OceanWise's education groups around the world, by Rachel Irving, and she is going to take us on a little tour of what they do at the aquarium and learn a little bit more about sharks, the most misunderstood and amazing group of fish in the ocean who have been here for over 400 million years. That's almost twice as long as dinosaurs, so super, super cool. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, and thanks so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Thanks, Jesse. That's an awesome introduction. And yes, sharks are one of the coolest creatures on the planet. There are so many of them, but they come with a pretty bad reputation. So today we're going to talk about what makes sharks so awesome. And we're going to talk about a few of the different kinds of sharks that you can find. They don't all look the same, which is really cool. And then we'll talk about some ways that you can help sharks and make sure that they are safe in their environment all around the world, which is very exciting. So to start off with a little bit of a disclaimer, I'm not technically a shark expert, so I'm not currently doing research in the field, but I do know a little bit and I'll do my best to share my knowledge. So please, if you've got questions at the end, I will do my best to answer them. And if there's anything that I don't talk about or I don't get around to answering today, please make sure that you do some research yourself as well and find out what you can discover about sharks, because we're only going to talk about just a little bit today. So make sure that you go and do a little bit of curious thinking of your own. So as I said, my name is Rachel. I'm located at the Vancouver Aquarium, which is in British Columbia, Vancouver, right on the western side of the country. We're located on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations peoples. And I have sharks in my backyard too, just like every one of you will have as soon as you get to a coastline, that is. And what's really cool about sharks is that they come in lots of different shapes and sizes. There are over 500 different types of sharks in the world. So they look and are different shapes and they live in different parts of the ocean, and it's exciting to explore these different creatures. So before we get started, I'd like to gather what your impression of sharks is. So if everyone could make a face of what comes to mind when you think of sharks. Okay, I see a lot of different faces. Excellent. And I do see quite a few like oohs. I see a few and that's pretty fair. A lot of people are scared of sharks. And honestly, I don't blame you. They've got pretty sharp teeth and humans are pretty squishy. So when we come up against a shark, we tend to lose, and that's okay. But these animals have pointy teeth and they've got very fast bodies because they have a specific job in their environment. And oftentimes movies especially like to make sharks the villain when really they are the superheroes of the ocean. So let's talk about what makes sharks so special. The very first thing is that most sharks are really, really fast. And for some reason, even though some of them are huge, they don't sink to the bottom of the ocean. This is very strange. If you're an animal that has lots of muscle, you're quite heavy, and you should be sinking down to the bottom of the ocean. So fish need a way in order to make sure they don't sink and they can swim really fast. Sharks have a very special skeleton. So if you feel the back of your neck and you feel your fingers, you feel your elbows, these are all bones. These are all very thick and dense bones that help make us supported when we stand on land. Now, if sharks were made of bone and all that muscle, they definitely would sink. So instead of being made of bone, their skeletons are made out of cartilage. And you have cartilage on your body as well. Can anyone point to where they think their cartilage might be? Hey, yes, I see a few things. Okay, we've got nose and we've got our ears. So give it a wiggle and you'll feel that it's really flexible. It's very bendy, and that's because it's nice and light. So all sharks, in order to be a shark, you have to have a cartilaginous skeleton. And I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. It's very rare to get full shark skeletons because cartilage does break down in the ocean, but we have a preserved skeleton here of what a shark looks like. So number one rule of being a shark, you have to have cartilage skeletons. And this makes sure that they can swim nice and fast without sinking to the bottom of the ocean. And the second thing that makes sharks so famous, can anyone show me on their body what makes sharks so famous? Anyone point to what it is on their bodies? Excellent, we've got teeth. Sharks have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of teeth. And so in order to be a shark, you also have to have a very cool set of jaws. So this is a close-up look at what a shark's jaw looks like. We've got two different species here. I believe one is a lemon shark and one is a nurse shark. And the cool thing about sharks is that they can constantly replace their teeth. Has anyone here lost a tooth? Raise your hand if you've lost a tooth. Oh, excellent. Perfect. If you've lost your teeth, you're done. You don't have to worry about losing your teeth again. We lose them once as people, and then we're set with our adult teeth. But sharks, on the other hand, have all of those extra rows of teeth, usually 3 or 4 rows of teeth. Can you imagine in your mouth if you had 3 or 4 extra rows behind your teeth? Your mouth would be very, very full. And so sharks are able to replace their teeth over and over and over again, which is a very special thing because most sharks are predators. And this is why they're super important. Jesse, I know we've got quite a big group, but I'd love to do at least one round with the students.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's get some brainstorms of why, students, do you think sharks are important? Or what is their job in the ocean?
All right. How about we go to Miss Hand's class, grade 3s in San Antonio, came in a little bit right after we started. So Miss Hand's class, what do you guys think? If you guys can hear me. Hey, so what makes sharks so important, guys?
They make sure that there aren't too many fish. And also they migrate by swimming in south or north. If it's too cold,
Okay, so we've got migrating, we've got that there's not too many fish in the ocean. Let's go to another one of the classes that came in a little bit after. So Miss McPhee and Miss Peterson's class in Alberta. You guys have thoughts? What do you guys think? Hey.
They kill
You guys
pests.
hear me? Yeah.
they keep the fish population under control.
Keep the fish population under control. Really good. Okay. What else?
Anything else? Ellie?
Awesome, guys. Okay. Let's keep going. We'll try some other classes too. How about Miss Gary's class? What do you guys think?
We're struggling here. We said to keep the fish population down or keep people off the beaches.
How many of you really like sharks?
Yeah. Okay, put up your hand if you really like sharks.
You might like to study sharks or learn more about sharks. So another thing that sharks help us with is they actually help provide jobs for people, because it's somebody's job to go take care of sharks, and it's somebody's job to look after sharks and to research sharks. So there's another way that they might be able to help us. So if you like sharks, that's one way that sharks might be able to help you as well.
Very cool. Are we good with that? Do you want to go on, or do you want me to
No,
ask?
I think we're good with that. We'll try and get another opportunity for more classes to participate. The number one thing that many people, and I'm glad everybody already knows this, is that sharks help to control fish populations, which is really important because especially when you're looking at predatory sharks, they tend to go after the fish that are sick or the fish that are old. And so that way you're helping to keep the population healthy, and you're making sure that there's not too many fish, because if there's too many fish, then everything gets thrown out of balance and it creates an unhealthy ecosystem. However, that being said, not all sharks are eating the same kind of things. So let's take a look and see a different type of shark that maybe eats a little bit differently. And this will be our opportunity in a moment to go talk to some of the other classes. But let's look at this shark. Can I get a little wave if you can see my big blue shark? Excellent, perfect. This is called a whale shark. It is the biggest shark that we have. And it is found mostly in warm waters. And this is how it hunts. So the video should be a little bit choppy, but this is a video of how it hunts. So this is actively hunting for food. It's swimming around with its mouth open, just constantly, all day long, gliding through the ocean. Now, let's go for a class that maybe we haven't talked to yet. What do you think this shark might be eating?
All right, so on that note, let's go to Miss Escamila's class. What is that shark eating, guys? What do you think?
Hey, bye.
Fish, okay.
Fish is a really good guess,
Yeah,
but it's actually looking for something smaller than fish.
smaller than fish. Okay, it looks like we got some fish in the picture. Let me see if we can get some of the other classes. How about Miss Smith's class in Peterborough? What do you guys think?
Seaweed.
Ooh, seaweed. That is a very good guess, and you're very close. Now, in order to be a shark, it does have to eat meat, but there is something in the water that is just as small as seaweed that is made out of meat, and we call that plankton. So plankton are tiny little creatures that are floating around in the water, and of plankton, you might find things like krill, which are tiny little shrimp. So this whale shark, the biggest shark of them all, is hunting for one of the tiniest things in the entire ocean. That seems a little bit funny, doesn't it? I don't know why, but this is a really cool thing. So we have a shark. It's got the teeth, just really, really tiny teeth. It's got cartilage skeleton. It is a fish, and it is eating meat. But it's hunting for things that are microscopic little animals in the ocean. So remember, there are 500 different types of sharks in the world. Not all of them are going after the same kind of fish. So let's take a look at one more shark that might be a bit of a stumper. And this is a very cute little shark once we get past our whale shark. There we go. Excellent. Here's an up-close look at another shark. A very small shark. If you hold out your arm, it's about the length of your arm. It's called a Port Jackson shark. And do we have any other classes that we haven't talked to yet?
Yeah, we got a couple. I can.
Let's go to the ones we haven't talked to yet. And let's ask them, what do you think this shark eats? Just by looking at the teeth in its mouth, and it's small.
So Miss Richard Doan's class, what do you guys think? And staff. Plankton, we got. Awesome. And then I'll ask one more class. So Miss Sinclair's class, what do you guys think? Plankton.
No, mussels and stuff.
Muscles and stuff. Ooh,
Muscles and
okay.
stuff. Wait, hold on. Who said muscles and stuff?
Let me go back. Okay. Yep. So with Miss Sinclair's class, they're demuted. What do you want to ask?
Right. I want to ask, why do you think muscles and stuff?
Tell us, Arnie.
Because they have sharp teeth that come back into their mouth, and it
Yeah.
looks like they could eat something hard.
Yeah.
That's some excellent sleuthing. Well done. And you are correct. They actually do like to eat things like clams and snails and sometimes small fish, but mostly things like sea urchins. So they've got that specially designed mouth so that they can break apart things that are really hard. And so here's a picture of the Port Jackson shark eating some eggs. That is an egg casing of something else. So they like to use their special teeth to eat hard things. So this is why, sadly, sharks have such a bad reputation, even though there are over 500 different types of sharks, and not all of them are eating big fish or big scary things like we think that they are. So what's most important is then, how do we help sharks when they perform such an important role for people, for the ocean, for all these other organisms? How in the world do we help sharks? And we look at some of the biggest threats to sharks. One of them is overfishing. So humans, we take a lot of things from the ocean. We need them in order to survive. And oftentimes, because we have to feed so many people, we have created these fishing techniques that oftentimes will catch a large amount of fish at once, but not taking care as to what they're catching. So when a fisherman catches something it's not meant to, it's called bycatch. And this is what oftentimes sharks fall victim to, is that they'll get caught up in nets, they'll be caught by accident by lines or by dredging along the bottom of the ocean, and this hurts the sharks. So a very easy way that you can help is by going on a scavenger hunt with your adults in the grocery store, in a restaurant, and looking for something that has a sustainable seafood logo. So for example, if you're in Canada, you can look for the OceanWise logo. And if you're in the US, you can look for the Monterey Bay Sea Watch or Seafood Watch program. This means that your seafood was caught in a way that does not hurt the environment. So it doesn't hurt the sharks, it doesn't hurt their food. And that means that we're also telling the fishermen what kind of fish that we want to eat. So that's one little thing that you can do every single day. Every time you eat seafood, look for a Seafood Watch logo and make sure that you're choosing smart seafood to help the sharks. So with that being said, we've touched on why sharks are super cool and we've got loads of time for questions. So let's dive into it.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. And so feel free to all our classes too. If you guys want to ask anything about any kind of shark or any other things about sharks, we'll try and get you the answer as best we can throughout the presentation. We've also got a bunch of classes watching on YouTube, a ton that were actually participating during our interactive session. So that was super great too.
Oh, yay.
Now we're going to start with our live classes. And then if you guys on YouTube want to type in yours too, I'll happily share them with Rachel. Let's start with Miss Smith's class. If you guys want to kick us off, come on up.
Open that too.
Is there any other kind of natural predators for sharks besides humans?
Yes, natural predators for sharks other than humans, yes. Other sharks is the big one. So sharks will eat other sharks. And the orca whale, the killer whale, has also been observed as a predator for things like great white sharks. So those are two other things that could harm them that are natural.
Very cool.
And disease. I think that's important to mention. There's always the risk of getting sick.
Yeah. All right, Miss Gary's class, come on up, guys.
How do you get the sharks and how do you put them in the tank?
Oh yeah, how do we get our sharks? That's a good question. So the Vancouver Aquarium is certified by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which means we are at the highest level of qualification of quality within zoos and aquariums in North America predominantly. So that means that we have to follow certain guidelines when it comes to care and to make sure that we give our animals really high quality care. So most oftentimes when it comes to tropical things like this, we'll actually trade with other aquariums. So these sharks likely came from another aquarium. They've been here for quite a while. However, we also sometimes will have animals that are bred in-house. So for example, we've got our epaulet shark that recently had pups. So there are a whole bunch of baby epaulet sharks in here. I just haven't seen them because they're really tiny. But that also happens. So generally we either have our own population, so we do not have to collect from the wild, or we trade with other aquariums. So again, we're not taking from the wild if we don't have to. And how we get them in there, it's a little bit tricky, but oftentimes with any fish, it's a net and then quickly into another bucket of water so that they're never out of the water for too long.
Very cool. All right. Let's go to Miss Hand's class. If you guys have a question, come on up.
Is that real water from the ocean behind you?
It is real water. It's not from my ocean. My ocean is very, very cold. And you can actually make salt water, which is pretty cool. So in the case of this habitat, our cold water habitats are directly from the ocean. This habitat, I believe, is actually made. So we have like water, and we mix special salt, and we make our own salt water.
Awesome. All right. I want to take a question from a group on YouTube. So Miss Hooker's class, grade 3s in Mechanicsville in Virginia. We are covering all the states today. They want to ask, how many types of sharks are there in the U.S. or off the U.S.?
Oh gosh, that is a great question. Unfortunately, I don't know a specific number. And again, I encourage you to go and research yourself, because the trick with that question is, A, we haven't explored all of the ocean, so we don't know a lot about sharks, and particularly ones that are migrating. So sharks that travel in and out and go up and down, it's hard to tell exactly how many different species of sharks are around at one given time. So please go do your research. The cool thing about the United States and North America in general is that you've got both cold water and warm water sharks. So you're gonna have quite a few different species, which is really neat. And there are gonna be some really small ones. There's gonna be some really big ones. But definitely go explore that.
Very cool. All right. Miss Escamila's class, if you guys have one, come on. Oh, They've gone. They've cut out. Okay, so we'll get them back in a minute. Sorry. Let's go to Alberta. So Miss McPhee, Miss Peterson's class. If you guys have a question, go for it.
What are those two circle things on that one shark that have like those row of teeth?
Oh, the two circle things. Oh, I know what you mean. So the question was, what are the two circle things on the Port Jackson shark? Those were its nostrils. So those were its nose. But very cool thing about sharks, they use their nose to smell. They do not use their nose to breathe. This is a really weird thing for people to try and understand. But because they have gills, their air comes out of their gills, just like if you breathe out of your mouth. And then they can scent things, so smell the smell of things using their nose. So those are where the nose are, but it breathes out of its gills.
Awesome. Great question. Great paying attention, guys. All right. Miss Richardone's class, come on up for a question. Both of you together. I like it.
Here, right here. They're a little too close. There we go. Right there. Perfect. Go ahead.
How long do sharks live?
Ooh, nice unison. How long do sharks live? It depends on the shark. The oldest shark that we currently are aware of is called the Greenland shark, which is estimated to be around between 200 to 300 years old. So it's very cool. It depends on the shark, but the oldest one is up to 300 years old.
Super cool, which by the way makes it one of the longest lived animals in the entire world. There aren't many things that live over 200 years old. Humans are actually one of the most long-lived species, so that's really cool when we found that out.
Yes, older than us.
All right, let's go to Miss Sinclair's class. Also, Miss Smith's with them, so we got two classes in Montana together. Come on up, guys.
How far down can sharks dive?
Ooh, also a good question. How far down can sharks dive? It depends again on the species. So some sharks actually live about 3,000 feet down. So those sharks are living there all the time, which is pretty cool. And some of them are blind. They've actually given up on seeing because it's so dark, you don't need eyes, which is pretty cool. So I think the deepest one that I'm aware of is 3,000 feet.
Super cool. All right. We've got Miss Burke's class asking a whole bunch of questions on YouTube, grade 4s in Ashtabula on Ohio. So they want to ask, they want to ask so much. How long have sharks been around, Rachel? 400
million years.
Which
that
is,
we know
of. Is there a way that we can put that into a context that's like conceivable for people? But it's such a big number. I don't know. Dinosaurs.
I mean, they've been around since before people were there and before we had cities or roads or anything like that. So if you can imagine a world where there were no buildings, no roads, it was all trees and lakes, that was when sharks were around.
Yeah, and people usually think of dinosaurs as being like the epitome of ancient creatures, and they were around over 100 million years before the first dinosaur was the first shark, which is very cool. All right. Another quick question online. Miss Baudouin's class in Kelowna, BC, grade 3s, they want to ask, how many teeth do sharks have?
Ooh, how many teeth do sharks have? It will differ depending on the species, but around 30,000? It's 30,000 or 300,000. Yeah, at least 30,000. I can say that confidently.
And their teeth are a little bit different than ours. We have the 2 sets of teeth. How about sharks?
So most sharks will have 3 to 4 rows of their teeth within their jaw. So there'll be like 1 and then there'll be 3 extra rows back. And it's kind of like a conveyor belt. So when one tooth drops or falls out, which happens frequently, the next one just quickly replaces it.
Yeah. So when you're in an aquarium, you can find lots of shark teeth as the sharks keep losing their teeth. So you just dig around the bottom and get them.
And that's how we know Megalodon was a species of sharks, because the skeletons, they dissolve very quickly in water with cartilage. Cartilage does not last as long as bone does, but their teeth are still made out of really strong material, keratin, same as your teeth. And so that is able to survive for a long time. And we found those Megalodon teeth. That's why we know it used to exist. So that's pretty cool.
Very cool. All right, let's go back through our live classes for a second round. So Ms. Smith's class, you can kick us off. Come on up, guys.
Oh, the life cycle of a shark? Sorry, we wanted to know a little bit about the life cycle of a shark.
Yeah. Great question. The life cycle of the shark, I'm going to keep saying this, I'm sorry. It does depend on the species of shark. But there are 2 key ways that sharks have babies, and the babies are called pups. Most sharks will actually, after the female's been impregnated, she lays what we call a mermaid purse. So it's basically an egg case. It looks kind of like a little clutch bag, like a little purse. And that is then set onto the corals and it rests. And when the pups are ready, they emerge from the mermaid purse. So that's like an egg case. And then 2 or 3 pups will pop out whenever they're ready. So that's the most common way that sharks have babies. But some sharks do give birth. The pups will hatch inside the mum and they'll come out live. So they're still fish, but sometimes the eggs hatch inside the body. Other times the sharks lay their eggs out in the corals or in the rocks or whatnot.
Yeah. And Rachel, in your picture earlier, you had a picture of something eating an egg, and I'm pretty sure it was a shark egg, which is one of the coolest things in nature. So if you're able to show that just so that people can see what a shark egg looks like, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. Just give me 1 second. I can find it again. Oh, there it is.
Your turtle's photobombing you, by the way.
So yes, that is Schoona. Schoona is a green sea turtle. She's a bit of a diva, but she's definitely likes to be the center of attention. She's quite fun. She actually bullies our sharks sometimes. She'll nip on their tails, which is funny. Yeah, so yeah, that, I don't know if that is a shark egg case. I know it is an egg case. The mermaid purse is usually more like a bubble, and this looks like a spiral. So this actually could be fish eggs, or it could be invertebrate eggs, but I don't know which species.
Yeah, I'll pull up some shark egg images for the classes later, just so you can see them, because they're really diverse and they're really, really neat. Very cool. Awesome. All right, let's go to Miss Gary's class. Come on up, guys.
How do you know what sharks will get along?
Ooh, great question. How do we know what sharks will get along? So in terms of an aquarium setting, the biggest thing that we look for is size. So how big the sharks are. So if we have like a giant shark and then we have a whole bunch of little sharks, there's a good chance that the big shark might eat the little sharks. And the second thing we look for is their diet. So for example, if we've got fish-eating sharks and we've also got sharks that eat shells or clams or whatnot, they're probably gonna get along because they're not gonna try to eat each other. So size and what they eat are the 2 ways that we'll try to determine if the sharks get along.
Excellent, very cool. All right, Miss Hand's class with the student that's been patiently waiting. Come on up.
If great white shark and a Mako shark race, which one's faster?
Oh.
Yes, race questions.
Yeah, if the great white and the Mako shark, I believe it's the Mako shark is the faster one.
Mako shark's fastest shark on Earth, but both really, really fast. We're talking like 60, 70 kilometers per hour at full speed in the water, which is really speedy, so way faster than we can go. Great question. I want to take a few questions from YouTube. We have one that I've never seen in a shark hangout ever, so I have to pass it to you. So this is from Miss Lindsay's class, and they are joining us from Anchorage, Alaska. So they want to ask, can you train a shark to do tricks like you do with dolphins?
That's a very cool idea. Can you train a shark to do tricks? We do try to train most of our animals with husbandry behaviors. So that's anything that's required with their health care. And sharks are a little bit similar. What we've trained the sharks to do, and other aquariums have done this as well, is because they will compete with each other when they're eating. So we don't want our sharks to fight when they're getting fed. So the sharks have been trained to go to their specific corner. And so some people use pictures, like they'll use like a target. These sharks know which corner is their area to go to when it's feeding time. And so that's the amount of training that we'll do as sharks, is so that they understand, here's where I go to get fed at this time, and that way they don't fight with each other.
Very cool. All right. We actually, and I'll pass along a link to some of our classes when we're done too, so that they can see some sharks being trained in action, because it's very cool. A great question here, because I think it touches upon something that a lot of people don't know about sharks. So the question was, how do sharks make air with their gills? So you can use this to explain a little bit about how things breathe underwater in general.
How do sharks make air with their gills? Okay, so when we breathe, our lungs are pulling something called oxygen out of the air. So in the air, you've got a whole bunch of stuff, oxygen, carbon dioxide, all these other things. Our lungs, as like a mechanism, their job is to pull those little pieces of oxygen out of the air, and that's what helps make our bodies run. Sharks and fish and animals living underwater also need oxygen, but instead of being in the air, that oxygen is mixed in with the water. So the gill's job is to then pull those little pieces of oxygen out of the water. So that's why a lot of sharks, they have to keep swimming in order for that water to constantly be going over their gills, because you have to have the water past the gills so that they can then pull out the oxygen. Some sharks can move the water themselves, which is pretty cool. Yeah, generally the gills' job, pull oxygen out of the water.
Excellent. All right. Let's go to Miss McPhee, Miss Peterson's class. Come on up in Alberta, guys.
Why is it illegal for killing sharks?
Why is it illegal for killing sharks? It is only illegal in some parts of the world. And it is illegal because they have an important function for the environment. So like we mentioned, we need them to help make sure the ecosystem stays healthy. And many of them are endangered. So that means that they're at risk of going extinct or disappearing completely. And so we don't want to mess with that wonderful picture of the ocean. We want to make sure it stays healthy. And so it's illegal to hunt them as a way to try and protect them.
Excellent. All right. Great question, guys. And we're always glad we touch on endangerment and things that are threats to creatures in the wild. All right, Miss Richardone's class. Come on up, guys.
How many different kinds of sharks are in the sea?
Ooh, how many different types of sharks are in the sea? Over 500 different types of sharks. The biggest one is the whale shark, and then the smallest one is the dwarf lantern shark, which can actually fit into the palm of your hand. So you could hold the smallest shark in the world, but it lives thousands of feet down, so that's not very likely.
I'm really glad we got that. We had a bunch of classes on YouTube asking about the smallest shark. Actually, we always get the superlatives, as you know. So
yes, the smallest shark in the world, dwarf lantern shark, fits into the palm of your hand, and it glows in the dark.
And is there something that we can compare a whale shark to for some of the students? Like maybe, I don't know, I've heard school bus before is pretty cool.
School bus is pretty accurate. It's about the size of a school bus.
All of you guys could fit inside a whale shark. Not that it would want to eat you, because it's only eating plankton. All right. Let's go. Let me take one other question on YouTube, and then I will end off with a couple questions that are live. So, we got bones, we got whale sharks. Got a bunch of good questions today. Well, actually, I want to address this because you mentioned at the beginning about sharks and very misunderstood. So a bunch of the questions cover what's the deadliest shark, the most dangerous shark. So can you explain a little bit about shark attacks and how infrequent they are?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to note that when you see things in the news or when you see things on online or whatnot, that you always have to be a little bit skeptical, because oftentimes they try to use words that sound scary and make it a bigger deal than it actually is. There is no such thing as a man-eating animal. We are in their habitat. So when you go into the ocean, you are going into their home, just like if you were to visit a friend's house, you're going into their space. And the reason that sharks attacks happen, there's a couple different reasons, but most of the time it's because the shark is taking what's called a test bite. So remember, sharks are fish. You can see them swimming behind me now. They don't have hands. And when humans are curious about something, we use our hands to explore it. But since sharks don't have hands, they only have one thing they can use, and that's their mouth. So many sharks will actually take a bite out of something to see what it is, to see if it's worth eating. And unfortunately, because they do have sharp teeth and humans are quite squishy, we often end up getting hurt by that. So of shark attacks, there's only sharks will actually kill maybe 8 to 10 people a year, when on the flip side, humans can kill 100 million sharks a year. So it's really not a big threat. There's a lot of things that will hurt you more. And most times it's simply because these animals are very different from us and they have to explore the world a lot differently. They have to use their mouths to figure out what's going on.
Some of my favorite analogies that we consistently use at the other aquarium where I used to work is that more people get killed by vending machines, or a pop machine falling on them, than they do by sharks. So if you're not afraid of pop machines, don't be afraid of sharks. Something similar. Or selfies also get a lot more people than sharks ever will. And most of the attacks are when people poke the shark. And like any animal in the wild, it's good to respect them and respect their space.
And cows. Cows are another big one for sure.
Cows will get you all the time. Yeah, we'll do a session on killer cows later this month, I think.
It's always important to be careful. If you are going out into the wild, make sure you're being careful. Make sure you pay attention to swim warnings. Lifeguards will tell you if there's a shark in the water. Most of the time, we're definitely fine. And if you avoid the areas that we have sharks to be worried about, then you'll be fine as well. So just make sure you're being safe. Anything with a mouth can bite, but it's better just to be careful and then go swimming, because swimming is fun.
Outstanding. All right, and we'll wrap up with a question from Miss Sinclair's class. So if you guys want to come up, go for it.
Arnie, go. Does anyone else have a question? Corbin?
Oh.
Why don't sharks have eyelids?
Have eyelids? Good question.
Oh, that is a very good question. Why do sharks not have eyelids? Can I ask you a question in turn? Is that okay?
Sure, let me come back.
Why do you think that humans have eyelids?
Oh,
Go ahead. She's talking to you.
so that we can keep our eyes moist.
Yeah, exactly. So we can keep our eyes moist. So this is something that's special about animals living on land, is that because we're in the air, we have to try and keep our eyes moist. So we have eyelids. When animals that live in the water, like fish, they don't have to worry about keeping their eyes wet because they're underwater. So they never developed eyelids. It's a very curious question.
It is. We've never had that in any of our shark sessions ever. So great question, buddy. All right, Rachel, before we wrap up, again, I'm going to pass along a bunch of resources to our classes when we're done, including Oceanwise, so people can learn, and Sea Watch, so people can learn about how they can build sustainable seafood. Is there anything else you want to share with classes that they can go and follow up after this session to learn about sharks?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for the teachers in the room. Education.ocean.org is our education platform where you can go and find a lot of different resources, classroom activities, discussion posts, things like that. And if you have any questions or you'd like to connect with me and Oceanwise again, online.learning@ocean.org is our email, and that way you can contact me directly, and we can definitely arrange to connect again with our programs or through the virtual aqua class or through the online learning environment, and we can answer some more of those questions that you might have.
Excellent. And again, I'll be sure to pass along those links to all our teachers so you can check them out. And education.ocean.org, probably the best in all of North America, if not the world. Ocean resources, ocean games, ocean activities. I say it every time. It's really fantastic. So do check that out. All right. Thank you so much, Rachel. This has been fantastic. Such a great dive in with sharks, literally and figuratively. And so what we're going to do is at the end of every session, I'm always do the same thing. I'm going to demute everyone's microphone. So boys and girls in all the classes, if you guys could join me in saying a huge thank you to Rachel. You are all now demuted. Go for it. Awesome, guys.
I hope you have fun. I hope you keep exploring.
Yeah, keep exploring, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We always love having you guys, and what a fantastic session. Again, look for the resources and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye, guys.